Hey guys, Ron Cecil here, men's life coach, helping successful businessmen who are struggling in their relationship feel initiated in their masculinity, overcome anxiety, and feel confident in their relationship, just like they want to. I've got a story for you today, and this is about a trait that is so common with nice guys and men who are driven by a deep-seated ambition, and that is to be different than their fathers. It's common that these men grew up with a father who they judged as children. And they judged their fathers because their father hurt their feelings, or their father actually harmed them, or their father abandoned them. Whatever it was, and I want you to think back over your own childhood, it left a mark, and a mark that is often called the father wound. As men mature and grow into adulthood, they do everything they can, consciously and unconsciously, to be different than their dads. I'll give you an example of my own life. I grew up with a dad who was in my life until I was about 3 years old. At 3, he left my mother and myself and my sister and took off. I won't get into the details of why he broke up with my mom, but it was pretty hairy. He had a sex addiction. He came back a few years later. My mom tried to let him back in our life, and within another year, he was gone. Over the next several years, he would be in and out. I would see him sometimes, I would see him pretty regularly, and then he'd be gone for years at a time. Of course, by the time I was 12 or 13 years old, I had this deep father wound, right? I felt abandoned by my dad. I felt a mistrust of who he was. There was one part of me that loved him, of course, and loved the kind of man he was. He was a literal West Texas oil rig roughneck, redneck. He literally had a red burn on his neck from welding. He was an outdoorsman. He could fix anything. And he was terrified of intimacy and terrified of saying that he was wrong, and was terrible with his money. He never paid child support. And before he died, he was married 8 times to 7 different women, twice to my mom. There was this push-pull of wanting to be around him and wanting to see him, and of course loving him, and also wanting nothing to do with him and wanting to be as opposite or as different from him as I possibly could. And here's the example I'm really getting at here. When I was in college, I was a chaplain for my dorm. And while I was interviewing for that position of being a spiritual leader, spiritual director for my peers at my school, the guy who was in charge of that program had been an ex-NBA basketball player. He was a great leader. He was loved at my school, and an obvious masculine father figure for many of us. He embodied integrity and honesty and strength and wisdom. We looked up to him a lot. So when you got FaceTime with him, it felt like it was a special time. And he looked at me and he goes, "Ron, what kind of man do you want to be?" And this was where I was almost betrayed by my unconscious self. Because before I could formulate a thought or a sentence about who I wanted to be, what kind of man I wanted to be, what I wanted my life to look like, this wellspring, this geyser really, this hot, passionate pain sprung up from my insides and shot out of my mouth and my eyes. I started crying. And I said, I just don't want to be like my dad. Through tears, they were ugly tears too. They're the kind of tears you had no control over. I think I was about 20 years old when this happened. And he leaned back in his chair and he pulled back the top desk drawer and he pulled out some Dairy Queen napkins and he tossed them across his desk. And he said, "You're not going to be like your dad." And he was right. In many ways, I'm nothing like my dad. But that didn't stop me from trying to be the exact opposite. So what's the danger? What's the problem of trying to be the opposite of our dads? We will use a simple analogy. The opposite of the North Pole is the South Pole. they are both cold and desolate places. So it's easy to swing from one extreme to another, trying to fix who we are going to become or who we want to avoid being. Now, this is a subtle thing. In my early days, I thought if I could be married and stay married, I would be different than my dad. And I tried to do that. I got married early out of college and was divorced within a few years because I was immature. I lacked the skills to be in a relationship. I had undiagnosed ADHD. My partner at the time had undiagnosed mental health issues as well. And she lacked her own good models of relationship, just like I did. And we tried to rescue one another. We tried to hide in one another, and it, as you would imagine, ended pretty quickly. And then when I got married again, a few years after that, my future father-in-law asked me a really simple question, a very challenging question. He looked at me and said, "Look, you come from a divorced family. Your dad was married and divorced a bunch of times. You already have been divorced. You are marrying a girl, a woman, who has a child. The odds are stacked against you. What are you going to do to stop this? What are you going to do to stay married?" And I'm so grateful for that question. We've been married now 14 years. I adopted that boy when he was young. He's now 17. And for a long time, I tried to be as different from my dad as I could, as opposite of him as I could. But my life really started to integrate and change for the better when I started to look at my dad through different eyes. And what that meant for me was, number one, understanding that my dad was doing the best he could with what he had at the time. He himself had been abused and abandoned. He'd been molested and then blamed by his own father for his experience. He was continually judged by his family and his brother. He had a mother who was a drug addict, and addiction ran through his life and both his siblings' life. He completely lacked the tools that it took to be a healthy individual human being. I started to see my dad through new eyes and have grace for who he was before he died. And I started to have gratitude for the time I had with him, the gratitude for skills in his life, gratitude for his personality, his sense of humor, and his presence. One thing that my dad embodied was a presence about him. Even though he was bald and overweight, he could walk into a room and smile and mean it and connect with people and make them feel like they were connected and seen. And I respect that about him. I still love that about him. And even though he's been dead for 20 years now, I love him more than I ever had. And in some ways, I know him better than I ever have because I've lived my own life and I've seen his personality in me. And instead of fighting it off like I thought I had to, I learned how to integrate his personality and his traits into my life, to love them and accept them. So no matter what your age is, no matter where you are in your relationship with your dad, my challenge to you is to learn how you can respect and love what you did get from that human being. After all, if it wasn't for him, you wouldn't be here. Your dad had his faults. Maybe you never saw him. Maybe when you did see him, you were afraid all the time. I'm sorry for you if that's what happened. It's not an easy road. It may be very difficult for you to find anything about your dad that you like or that you love. I think that's where maturity comes in, character comes in, because one way or another, that's why you're here. And I've heard men say over and over they wanted to be so different than their dads. They wanted to protect their mother or protect themselves. And in some instances, men got an opportunity to leave and fight their dads. And it didn't make it any better. There was more shame, more anger, more resentment. But in every instant I have seen where a man starts to become grateful for who he is because of what his father was or is, I see men start to heal their masculinity. They start to feel integrated as men. They no longer feel like boys stuck in a man's body. Their true confidence emerges. A healthy ambition comes to the surface that isn't driven by a need to prove or a need to be different, but it comes up because there's a source of power in them that connects to a service to their family, service to humanity, and service to their potential. They understand that they're capable of more. And those are things that I want for you too, my brother. You are capable of more. And you'll get to the better part of that when you start to love all the parts of you that are like him. That means all of you. That means every part of you. Thanks for watching this. If this resonated with you and you got some value, I'd appreciate it if you liked it, you subscribed. It helps other men on the journey to not be alone, to know that what they're going through is common. It's very common. It's very common. We live in a society that lacks initiation. We don't know what it's like to go from boyhood to manhood. We mistake things like drinking, turning 18, turning 21, starting a business, whatever it might be. We mistake those as initiation into manhood. And I want you to know that they are part of that, but they aren't all of it. If you're struggling with that internal feeling of not feeling like you have what it takes to be a man, even if you have all the success in your life you have achieved, the money, you've got the toys, you've got the beautiful wife, there's still some part of you that feels like you're lacking. Or there's a part of you that it just never felt like you've risen to the occasion in your life. There's a link below, you can click on it. It kind of lists out through a quick quiz about 20 different things that will make you feel seen, make you feel understood and heard about the dilemma of growing into a man in this time of our age, where we're told we need to be obedient, good men, whatever that means. Take the test. And if you need some more help, I've got a link below that you can book a introductory coaching session with me for just $60. Whether you stick with me or not, it doesn't really matter, but it'll help you on your path, give you a good idea of where you are in this journey into masculinity and into adulthood, no matter what your age. Until then, gentlemen and brothers, grace and peace to you. Looking forward to meeting you sometime. See you later.